Welcome back to Faith is the Podcast. We're going to be diving into some really insightful ideas about how to, navigate life's challenges, those
Yeah.
moments, when temptation pops up or you feel pulled in different directions. And we're going to be taking a look at a sermon by Dr. Charles Stanley. And he breaks down some really common tactics that can lead us astray. Even if you're not deeply religious, these strategies can apply to anyone.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Dr. Stanley presents these concepts. He uses this framework of spiritual warfare. But when you really kind of peel back the layers, you find these universal psychological truths
Yeah.
about how our minds work and how we can fall into, patterns of thinking and behaving that maybe don't serve us.
Yeah, exactly. And before we get into the specifics, I do want to take a moment to thank Business Referred for sponsoring this episode. If you're looking to connect with customers in your local area, reach out to them at info@businessreferred.com. They do amazing work.
Right.
Now, getting into Dr. Stanley's sermon, he really emphasizes the importance of the mind as a battleground.
Mm.
It's where our thoughts and desires clash and where we make those critical choices that shape our actions.
Absolutely.
And he uses a powerful quote from Romans. For the mindset on the flesh is death, but the mindset on the spirit is life and peace. Really makes you think about where our focus goes.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
If we're constantly dwelling on what we lack, or, giving in to those urges for instant gratification, that can create a cycle of negativity and dissatisfaction. But if we can really focus on, things that are life-giving, gratitude, connection, purpose, it can lead to a much more fulfilling and peaceful experience.
That's so true. It's like choosing to nourish our minds with healthy food instead of junk food.
Yeah.
And Dr. Stanley outlines 4 key strategies that can really derail us if we're not careful. The first one is all about directing our attention.
Yeah.
So he talks about how we can get caught up in, comparing ourselves to others or constantly craving things we don't have. It's that classic temptation to focus on what's missing instead of appreciating what we already have.
Right. It's like that feeling of keeping up with the Joneses. You see someone with a fancy car or a bigger house, and suddenly we feel inadequate or envious, even if we were perfectly content before.
Exactly.
And that's where those, negative thought patterns can take root. We start to believe that happiness lies in acquiring more things or achieving a certain status,
Yeah.
instead of finding contentment in the present moment.
Right. And it's not just about material possessions either. It can be about relationships, careers, anything else we perceive as desirable.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing those moments when our desires are being manipulated or amplified in a way that leads us away from our values.
So how do we counter this? Well, Dr. Stanley suggests being mindful of where our attention goes. Are we constantly comparing ourselves to others? Are we allowing external factors to dictate our sense of worth?
He emphasizes the importance of gratitude and, focusing on the good things in our lives, shifting our perspective from a place of lack to a place of abundance.
Yeah, it's like training our minds to see the glass as half full instead of half empty, and to appreciate the unique gifts and blessings we already possess.
Exactly.
And this leads us to the second strategy, which is all about timing.
Okay.
Dr. Stanley points out that we're most vulnerable to temptation when we're in a weakened state. He uses the acronym HLLT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
It's so simple, yet so insightful. When we're physically or emotionally depleted, our defenses are down, we're more likely to make impulsive decisions.
Right. It's like when you're exhausted after a long day and you reach for that bag of chips, even though you know it's not good for you. Your willpower is just shot.
Exactly.
So in those moments, it's crucial to recognize our vulnerability and take steps to replenish ourselves.
Right.
So instead of giving into that urge to snack, we might need to prioritize getting some rest or having a nourishing meal.
It's about being proactive and taking care of our basic needs, so we're better equipped to handle challenges.
This reminds me of something I've struggled with in the past. I used to be terrible about saying yes to everyone and everything, even when I was completely overwhelmed.
That's a common trap, especially for people who are naturally giving or who have a hard time setting boundaries.
And it led to a lot of stress and resentment until I learned to recognize those moments when I was feeling depleted and started prioritizing self-care.
That's a perfect example of how understanding these strategies can help us make positive changes in our lives.
Absolutely. It's about being mindful of our own needs and recognizing when we need to step back and recharge.
And that awareness can be incredibly empowering.
Absolutely. It helps us make choices that are aligned with our values and that support our overall well-being. Now, Dr. Stanley's third strategy is all about creating doubt.
Okay.
He talks about how we can fall prey to doubts
Hmm.
about our core beliefs or values. And this can lead us to justify harmful behaviors or make decisions that go against our better judgment.
Right. It's like that little voice in our heads that whispers, just this once won't hurt. Or maybe those rules don't really apply to me.
And that's where things can start to unravel.
Yeah.
We begin to question what we know to be true and make compromises that erode our integrity.
Absolutely.
Now, Dr. Stanley is very clear that he believes in the absolute truth of the Bible. But even if you don't share that belief, the principle still applies. We all have certain principles or moral codes that guide our actions. And when we start to doubt those, it can lead to a slippery slope.
It's about recognizing those moments when doubt creeps in and being willing to challenge those negative thoughts.
Instead of suppressing those doubts, we need to confront them head on and reaffirm our commitment to the things we believe in.
Exactly.
And that leads us to the fourth strategy, which is engaging in debates.
Okay.
Dr. Stanley explains how we can get caught up in arguments about right and wrong, especially when our beliefs are challenged.
Right. It's about getting us sidetracked from what truly matters. Focusing on winning the argument instead of seeking understanding or, finding common ground.
This one really resonates with me. I used to love a good debate, but I've realized that sometimes it's more productive to simply agree to disagree.
Exactly. Not every disagreement needs to be a battle.
Sometimes it's better to walk away and preserve our peace of mind.
And to focus our energy on things that are more aligned with our values and goals.
This has been such an insightful discussion so far. We've covered so much ground, but we still have more to unpack.
Absolutely.
In the next part, we'll delve deeper into Dr. Stanley's message and explore how we can apply these strategies to our own lives.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so we've been unpacking these 4 strategies that Dr. Stanley talks about. Directing our attention timing is everything creating doubt and engaging in debates. And it's amazing how subtle these tactics can be, right? We might not even realize we're falling prey to them until we take a step back and really examine our thoughts and behaviors.
Yeah, it's like those optical illusions, where you think you're seeing one thing, but then you kind of shift your perspective and suddenly you see something completely different.
Exactly. And that's where the real work comes in. It's not enough to simply be aware of these strategies. We need to actively develop tools and practices to counter them.
Well, he talks about the importance of, knowing our core values. What are those fundamental principles that guide our decisions and shape our actions?
He uses the analogy of a compass, right? Having those grounding principles can help us navigate through life's challenges and stay true to ourselves even when we're feeling lost or uncertain.
And those principles can come from a variety of sources, our faith, our family, our culture, our personal experiences.
It's about finding those things that resonate with us deeply and using them as a foundation to build a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
And it's not about being rigid or inflexible. Our values can evolve over time as we grow and learn.
But having that core set of principles can provide a sense of stability and purpose, especially when we're facing difficult decisions or feeling pulled in different directions.
It's like having that inner voice that reminds us of who we are and what we stand for.
And that brings us back to the idea of the mind as a battleground, right? If we're not intentional about what we allow into our minds, we can easily become consumed by negativity, fear, and doubt.
Right. He talks about the importance of, guarding our hearts and minds, and he emphasizes the power of choosing our thoughts carefully.
It's like being selective about the food we eat or the company we keep. We want to nourish ourselves with things that are healthy and life-giving.
Yeah, and that includes, the information we consume, the conversations we engage in, the things we allow ourselves to dwell on.
He also talks about the importance of prayer and meditation as ways to connect with a higher power and find peace and clarity amidst the chaos.
And even if you're not religious, the practice of mindfulness can be incredibly beneficial. It's about taking those moments to pause and observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment.
And to cultivate a sense of gratitude for the good things in our lives.
It's about shifting our focus from what's wrong to what's right.
And remembering that we have the power to choose our thoughts and create a more positive and fulfilling reality.
Absolutely. He also emphasizes the importance of community, surrounding ourselves with people who support our values and encourage our growth.
He talks about the power of accountability and having people in our lives who can help us stay on track and hold us to a higher standard.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders who are rooting for our success.
And who can offer guidance and encouragement when we're feeling discouraged or tempted to give up.
This has been such a rich and insightful conversation.
I think we've just scratched the surface of Dr. Stanley's wisdom.
Oh, absolutely.
But I hope this deep dive has given you some practical tools and perspectives that you can apply to your own life. It's incredible how much wisdom is packed into just one sermon.
Right.
We've been talking about these strategies and how they can really show up in everyday life. But it's not just about recognizing the pitfalls, is it?
Not at all.
Dr. Stanley doesn't just leave us with a warning.
No.
He offers a way forward, a way to cultivate strength and resilience in the face of these challenges.
A path. Yeah, and he really emphasizes the importance of having a strong foundation, whether that's rooted in faith family, a personal code of ethics. It's about having something solid to hold on to when those, storms of life come our way.
To weather the storm.
Exactly.
And, that foundation gives us the courage to stand up for what we believe in.
Yeah.
Even when it's unpopular or challenging.
It's like having that inner compass that guides us towards what's right, even when we're, tempted to stray.
And Dr. Stanley also emphasizes the importance of forgiveness, both forgiving ourselves for our mistakes and forgiving others who have wronged us.
Oh, that's so important.
He talks about how holding on to anger and resentment can really poison our hearts and minds.
Yeah.
And prevent us from moving forward in a positive way.
It can really hold us back.
Forgiveness is not about condoning bad behavior. It's about releasing ourselves from the burden of negativity.
It's about making a conscious choice.
Letting go.
To let go of the past and embrace the present moment.
And that's a powerful act of self-care. Dr. Stanley also reminds us that we're not perfect. We all make mistakes. We all fall short sometimes.
That's part of being human.
But it's in those moments of failure that we have the opportunity to learn and grow.
To learn from our mistakes.
He encourages us to view setbacks as opportunities for transformation.
I love that.
It's about picking ourselves up, dusting ourselves off, and trying again with renewed determination.
And remembering that every experience, good or bad, can teach us valuable lessons.
Ultimately, Dr. Stanley's message is one of hope and empowerment.
It is.
He believes that each of us has the potential to live a life filled with purpose, joy, and meaning.
And that by understanding these strategies and developing the tools to counter them, we can overcome any obstacle and achieve our dreams.
That's a powerful message. So as we wrap up this deep dive on Faith is the Podcast, I want to leave you with this thought.
Remember that you are stronger than you think you are capable of, more than you know. And you have the power within you to create a life that is truly extraordinary. Thanks for listening to Faith is the Podcast. We'll see you next time.